Hey everybody, it's GobletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing another Premier Draft of Throne of Eldraine. This is the flashback Premier Draft for the week, and I'm pretty excited to hop back into it. We've got a really nice rare here, the Stonecoil Serpent. This is X mana for an XX with Reach, Trample, and Protection from multicolored, so it's always going to be worth its weight in terms of mana value. And it fits into any deck perfectly because of the colorless aspect of the card. So Stonecoil Serpent, pretty easy place to start here, but a pretty excellent pack. There's also an Epic Downfall, which is going to remove anything with mana value 3 or greater for only 2 mana, which is really nice. There's Trapped in the Tower, which is pretty good removal. I have had a lot of these blown up by my opponents in my previous draft, but I still think it's so efficient that it's still generally worth it. There's Sir Eleonora, and they're going to let you draw a card when they enter the battlefield and be a pretty big threat, so that's also a solid card. Pretty good pack in general for pack 1 there. Now we are on pack 1, pick 2. Once upon a time, this card was banned, is banned in a lot of formats because it's really good in your opening hand. So being able to have a playset of it was pretty busted and constructed. Definitely less good and limited. You can't rely on always having this be the first spell that you've cast, but it's still decent card selection. It's like the green version of Impulse. 1 and a green, look at the top 5 cards of your library, put a creature land into your hand from among them. So still pretty good, and it is super, super good when it's the first spell you cast, because then you cast it for free, which is completely busted. So I think I'm going to take it here. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Probably not. We're probably just supposed to take like Sir Eleonora here. Do a little bit of card draw here and a big threat. Or maybe go for the Elite Headhunter. Go for like a Rakdos Sacrifice deck or something. But Once Upon a Time's the funnest option. We'll roll with that. Pack 1, pick 3 now. Not too much going on in green. I think the Garenbrig Carver is pretty fine. Nice little adventure there. Lets you have a combat trick in your deck while still keeping your creature count super high. So that's pretty fine. Reef Soul's pretty fine as well. Efficient black removal, but it only kills small things. But it's good at getting rid of things with good abilities or evasion or anything like that. Weaselback Redcap's good for like the mono red super aggro deck. And Covetous Urge is very strictly for blue or black, being really, really heavy into it. Revenge of Ravens is pretty good in the right, more controlling kind of deck, especially if you can get multiples of it, but it's a really annoying card. I don't love running it. I think I'm just going to go Reef Soul here and see where we go from there. Pick 4 now. We've got a Fairy Guide Mother. This is one of the best white commons, I think. It's got a very nice adventure. Being able to give something +2/+1 in flying till end of turn can often find a lot of damage, maybe even lethal. And it's a 1 mana, 1/1 flyer stacked on top of that. In black, we do have a Wicked Guardian, which is also a great deal. 4 mana for a 4/2. You may have it deal 2 damage to a creature you control, and if you do, you draw a card. So if you have something with 3 toughness out, you to be drawing a card off that. Rimrock Knight is an excellent aggressive card, and mono red aggro is definitely a thing in the format, or just red-based aggro, if it's red-black, red-green, anything like that. So like the Guide Mother, Rimrock Knight, Hypnotic Sprite's probably fine too. I'll go Rimrock Knight here. We're still not really tied to anything, don't know for sure where we're going. Our third Sir Eleonora the Discerning. Could take that now, but then we're passing a massive blue signal because we've already sent 2 to the left. So pack 2, I don't think we're going to get any blue cards, but it looks like pack 3 we're going to get the hook up here. So it might still be worth the pivot, because pack 3 will be getting past cards from the right, which means we'll get a ton of blue cards again. But pack 2, somebody on our left has got to be scooping up blue by now. We could take Scalding Cauldron because it's fine removal for any deck, whatever colors we end up being. 3 damage to a creature for 4 mana. Not horrible. Yeah, I really have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to take a Scalding Cauldron here. We'll see how things fall into place when we open up our second pack, I guess. Just roll with the strongest card in that pack and go from there. Nothing here looks particularly powerful to me. Foreboding Fruit is solid. Draw 2, lose 2 life. You get a food token if you're adamant. If you have the triple black. Witching Well's solid card draw as well. It's a little slow, 4 mana to draw 2 after an initial 1 mana investment, but again, we're not going to get any blue in pack 2. Smitten Swordmaster was really nice last time. If you have a decent number of knights, a 2 mana 2/1 lifelinker is already okay, and you add on the adventure here to give you a way to damage your opponent even if the board is completely stalled out and there's a million creatures. So I'll take the Smitten Swordmaster. I think I like that a lot. I could take another Rimrock Knight here. There's also a 7 Dwarves. I think there was a 7 Dwarves in our opening pack. If no one else drafts the 7 Dwarves, these cards can be pretty busted. They're this set's version of the, like the cards that tutor for themselves, where it's like, if no one drafts them, then the one person that does is going to have an incredible deck. But if multiple people draft them, they're just going to be mediocre. Rimrock Knight is definitely more consistent, but I'm going to go for 7 Dwarves, and Burning Yard Trainer might be solid too. Still very, very new to this format. This is my second draft of the return, and I did not draft too much the first time around. Okay, if there was a 7 Dwarves in this pack, this one got scooped up. Does definitely look like we're just like red-black stuff here, so I'll take Malevolent Noble, I suppose. Okay. This looks like a bunch of garbage. Gargoyle might be okay. It's quite the inefficient mana sink though, 4 mana to actually attack with it. Just take Queen of Ice just because it's the best card, even if it is off color. And it's going to be all garbage from here on out. Oh, Wicked Guardian, something. And another Queen of Ice. Okay. Pack 2, pick one. Really hoping to open up a really strong, like, mono-colored rare here to really give us a sense of direction this draft. But this card does not look very strong. It's very narrow. Need to be a lot of artifacts and enchantments on the battlefield to choose from for it. Fairy Vandal, though, is a pretty powerful card, and we just got a Queen of Ice almost last pick. So even though we're not going to get much blue this pack, good lord, are we going to get blue from the right in pack 3. So I think this pack I just focus on scooping up a bunch of good black cards, and then pack 3 we probably just pick up all the blue stuff that gets passed, so go for the Fairy Vandal here. I think that is a sense of direction. We'll go for it. I only have to cut a few cards to do that. Now we have a plan. Never really going to play a 1 mana Stonecoil Serpent, so I'll put it at 3 mana on the curve. 3 mana or more is where I'd like to play it. Ideally this is like the really big late game bomb, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. Now we have a Tome Raider, which is a really good synergy with the Fairy Vandal. This lets you hit your second draw for turn. It's also just a really good deal by itself because it replaces itself with that card draw. I like that a lot. Charmed Sleep I'm a little bit low on since we are blue-black. If we can get black removal, it's going to just be strictly better than the blue removal because there's a lot that can go wrong when you try to Charmed Sleep a creature. Your opponent could return it back to their hand, then your Charmed Sleep will fall off. Your opponent could just play enchantment removal to kill the Charmed Sleep. But with black removal, like Revisol, you're just straight up killing it immediately and not much can go wrong. So I'm going to take the Tome Raider over the Charmed Sleep here. Back's like completely empty. But somebody took a rare and an uncommon. It's pick 3. So there just weren't really any good blue or black commons. The Paladin seems like fine if you can always adamant it. 4 mana for a 4/3 menace is not horrible. 4 mana for a 3/2 menace is not very good though. I don't know if we're always going to be adamanting it. I guess we just take a run away together. This is good if you have some very good adventures to recast. This was a big synergy piece in the blue-black deck, that would run a bunch of Merfolk Secret Keepers to mill your opponent, and then you'd pick them up again and mill your opponent more, which could be very annoying. Speaking of the Merfolk Secret Keepers, Overwhelmed Apprentice is the smaller cousin of the Merfolk Secret Keeper. You have your opponent's mill 2, and then you scry 2. So, yeah, pretty good card for the blue-black archetype. There's a few cards in blue-black that care about the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard, so even if you don't end up getting enough mill to completely mill your opponent out, you can get some value by putting some cards in their grave. Next best card here, definitely Reaper of Night. That did a lot of work in our last draft. Huge win condition, huge late game spell. And the Harvest Fear, making your opponent discard 2 sometimes, just wins the game right there. Moonlit Scavenger seems fine here. We'd ideally get a few more artifacts like Witching Well, but big old 4/5 body here. You bounce something when you play it. Seems pretty good. Sage of the Falls. You get some looting in the deck, get some draw discard, but it never puts you up a card. It's just card selection. It's a 5-mana 2/5. I don't know why, but that seemed a little less exciting to me. Maybe I even just take the Well for more card advantage. I don't have much. Yeah, I'll take the Well. Be unsure there. I think I'll take Reaper of Night here, though. Again, having the Mind Rot effect, the Harvest Fear attached to a big late game creature, makes both of those kind of cards a lot better, because you're getting both effects off just one card, which is phenomenal. Like that card a lot. What on earth is this? Return X artifacts and non-aura enchantments from your graveyard to the battlefield. X is 6 or more, they're 4/4s. Doesn't really do much in our deck. We don't have a lot of artifacts enchantments for the Shambling Suit either. Suppose we're taking a Steel Gaze Griffin. Just a big late game flyer. Somebody with the 7 dwarfs is going to be very happy here. We'll just take a Foreboding Fruit. Creature count looking like 11. It's not great. I don't have a lot of creatures that survive Wicked Guardians, but double Queen of Ice is a start, and Wicked Guardian, another card that's very good with the Fairy Vandal. I already have 1 Witching Well, 1 Noble. I'll take another Wicked Guardian. Another Runaway together. Shove some nonsense into the sideboard. And the final pack, a Clackbridge Droll. 5 mana for an 8/8 trample haste. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3/0/1 white goats. At the beginning of combat on your turn, the opponent may sacrifice a creature. If they do tap it, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Seems pretty good to me. A gigantic 8/8 trample haste can close out the game really quickly, and if your opponent wants the game not to end that quickly, they have to give you life and card draw, which is also a great ability to have over the course of multiple turns. So we'll take a Clackbridge Troll here. Seems pretty nuts. Speaking of pretty nuts, Midnight Clock is very good if the game goes long. This gives you a good mana sink. You dump all your mana into this, and if it ever triggers, you're going to draw a fresh new hand of 7 cards, which is a huge amount of card advantage. It's going to be pretty insurmountable for your opponent to recover from. So we'll take a Midnight Clock. Witchclaw Talisman we will not take. This lets us search our library for 1 card, but then we give the talisman to our opponent, and they get to do the same thing. So, not ideal. That being said, there's not really anything in this pack that's any good for us. We could take the Mystic Sanctuary or Witch's Cottage just in case we ever get flooded out. Get a bunch of swamps or a bunch of islands, get some extra value there, because I don't think Borrow Witches, Corridor Monitor, or Bell of the Brawl really do anything for our deck. Tiny bit more blue than black right now, so we'll take the Mystic Sanctuary. We're probably taking Drown in the lock. Counterspell, mana value less than or equal to the number of cards in controller's graveyard, or destroy a creature. Mana value less than or equal to. But Magic Mirror might be it. Costs 1 less for each instant sorcery in your graveyard. You have no max hand size at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a counter on it and then draw a card for each counter on it. That's fun, but that's going to be a lot of mana, even though we have a decent amount of instants and sorceries. Feels like it's probably going to be a little too slow. I'll take the Drown in the Loch here. Ooh, there's the Merfolk's Secret Keeper, so we can get some more mill going to our opponent's face to fuel our Drown in the Loch. This gives us another card to work well with our 2 copies of Runaway together as well. I'll definitely take the Merfolk's Secret Keeper, although I am taking it over another Drown in the Loch, which is pretty sad. But I think I kind of have to here. Get this first one to actually do stuff. 3rd Drown in the Loch? Okay, this will be the 2nd Drown in the Loch in the deck, because I did just pass up on one, but I will absolutely take that one. And this is now our 24th non-land card, so we get to cut something that's kind of nonsense, maybe the Griffin. Another Reaper of Night seems fine. Tempting Witch also fine, it slows the game down a little bit, gives you 1/3 blocker and you gain some life. Or if you have a bunch of food tokens, you can start throwing food at your opponent, but I think I like another Reaper of Night here. Opt is pretty great with the Overwhelmed Apprentice. Lucky Clover is nice with a ton of adventures, but it's a little too narrow because it's really, really bad if you draw it without your adventure creatures. 2, 4, 5, 6. 6 adventures total feels teensy bit low for the Clover. Because again, it is just horrific if you draw it without drawing an adventure creature. And you basically just mulligan for no reason. And you really ideally need to be casting multiple adventures after playing the Lucky Clover for it to really be worth its cut. Because if you play a Lucky Clover and then you play like 2 adventures afterwards, you've essentially gotten just as much value out of that Lucky Clover as you would have if you just drew one of those adventure cards. Because adventure cards are already built in 2-for-1s. So you need to really, really, really have a lot of adventures for Lucky Clover to pop off. But if you do, it does. It pops off pretty majorly. Alright, we need to cut just a few cards here, but then we've got a blue-black, not really a mill deck. We did not get like a million Secret Keepers or anything. Kind of just a blue-black nonsense pile. Once again, I really hate this update. I literally set it to card styles, and then I click on the card to change the card style, and it just cuts it from the deck. Like, I can't change the card styles of cards that are currently in my deck, which is really, really annoying for trying to turn off Parallax card styles in Draft. It is worse than it has ever been. Okay, so we need to cut 5 cards. We're sitting at 16 creatures. Pretty good count. We could definitely cut a few of those though, because we're not really an aggro kind of deck. Probably just want to cut the Steel Gaze Griffin still. Then 4 non-creature cards to cut. Got Double Fruit. We probably don't need Witching Well. We've got a lot of card draw attached to our creatures. Tome Raider draws 1. Wicked Guardians draw 1. Probably don't need that much card draw in general. We also have Midnight Clock for a draw 7. So maybe Witching Well and the Foreboding Fruit get cut here. I don't really have any knights for the Swordmaster. It's just a 2-mana, 2/1 lifelink. Still might just be worth it. 3 Runaway together might be a little bit much. We only have the 1 Secret Keeper and 1 Apprentice. So sure, we'll cut down one of those and then This will be the deck, I think. How's the mana looking? 12 blue cards, 11 black. Tiny bit more blue than black. But every blue card in our deck only requires 1 blue mana. We've got multiple that require double black, but that's not till very late in the game. I guess on turn 5 I could need to cast the Rage of Winter and Queen of Ice. Or the Venture Deeper and Merfolk Secret Keeper. Cast these blue adventures and the spell themselves. So if you count adventures, I've got 3 double blue cards. Although I'm kind of 1 higher on blue sources because of the random midnight clock in here as well. This is almost like an even split. 8 blue sources and a midnight clock versus 9 black sources. Although Mystic Sanctuary also wants more islands specifically in the deck. Sure, I will go down to 8 swamps, 9 islands. Man, it could be a tiny bit awkward, but again, it really doesn't look like we need double black till turn 5 or later, so should hopefully be okay. There will probably be more instances where we need to cast 2 blue spells in 1 turn than need to cast a double black spell, at least early on. So hope that mana works out for us, we'll see. Alright, here's a look at the deck we'll be playing today. It's kind of just a blue-black pile of stuff. Couldn't really figure out where we were going in the first pack. Decided in pack 2 that we just got past a bunch of blue stuff and already had a few black cards, so we just kind of went that direction and rolled with it. We don't have a ton of great synergies in this deck. It's kind of just a pile of good stuff. A couple of the main synergies are we have Merfolk Secret Keeper and Overwhelmed Apprentice. Those are 2 cards that will mill our opponents when they enter the battlefield or when they get cast on the adventure half with 2 Runaway Togethers so that we can recast those adventures. The Runaway Together is also good with any of our other adventure creatures or other enter the battlefield effect creatures. And with the mill, we get to activate our Drown in the Locks and use these as counterspells and removal spells if we are lucky. The other synergy in the deck is the Fairy Vandal with a bunch of cards that draw 1 card for the turn. So if we have a Fairy Vandal on board, then if we opt during our turn after our draw step, we'll put a counter on the Vandal. If we play a Tome Raider that turn, we'll put a counter on the Vandal. If we play a Wicked Guardian, we'll put a counter on the Vandal. Lots of ways to buff the Fairy Vandal. Probably one of the strongest cards in the deck, but other than that, just a decent amount of interaction, some bounce spells, some removal, and solid curve, just mid-rangey pile of stuff. We can do things all throughout the game. We've got the 2 drops to trade off, keep us alive, and then we've got the win conditions. We have a big old Stonecoil Serpent, a gigantic Clackbridge Troll, and a couple pretty great Reaper of Knights. So without further ado, we'll head into the gameplay, see how it does. If I was a betting man, I'd say this one's probably about a 3-3, very, very average deck here. Alright, here we are, game 1, opponent on the play. Definite keep of a hand here. We've got a 2-drop. We have a Midnight Clock, which helps us ramp into an even bigger Stonecoil Serpent later, as well as any of our other plays. Our opponent is on blue-black as well. Foulmire Knight is going to use its adventure to have our opponent lose a life and draw a card. Or rather Midnight Clock right now, or Tome Raider. That's Tome Raider. I've already got my land drop for next turn. Now I've got another. Now I can play the island first and kind of hold on to the Mystic Sanctuary until I have 3 islands on board, so that this enters untapped and I can put an instant or sorcery from grave to hand. Revenge of Raven's really annoying here. It's very good against small creatures like we have in our deck. So Tome Raider is basically useless now. If I attack with Tome Raider, I'm only dealing a damage to myself. If I attack with Malevolent Noble, each player is losing a life instead of just our opponent. Play a Midnight Clock here. I've got 2 mana left afterwards. nothing really to do for 2 mana. Probably sack Tome Raider. In blue-black, we don't really have a way to deal with Revenger Ravens. So let's go Midnight Clock, sack Tome Raider. I could also use the Reaper of Nights adventure, but I like trying to save that until my opponent's pretty low on cards in hand, so their options of what to discard are scarce. But yeah, if we sacrifice the Tome Raider because it's already just never going to get to attack again, we make the Malevolent Noble actually big enough to deal 2 damage to our opponent and 1 damage to us. We are going to have to deal with this Foulmire Knight, so we need to get a card in our opponent's graveyard, and Merfolk Secret Keeper is the perfect way to do that. Now I can blow that up with a Drown in the Lock. Opponent could have Didn't Say Please here. May I please cast my Venture Deeper? It's actually not that big of a deal if it does get countered. Be countering a relatively insignificant card, and they'd still have enough cards in grave for my Drown in the Lock to get triggered now. Ooh, we milled a Didn't Say Please, and a Charmed Sleep, and a Bake into a Pie and a Reeve Soul. We milled a counter spell and 3 removal spells. That feels pretty good. Yeah, so let's drown the Foulmire Knight and then Mystic Sanctuary the Drown back into our library. I think that's what we do here. If they do have the Didn't Say Please, though, they're going to counter the Drown in the Lock. But I don't think I'm going to bounce the Foulmire Knight. May I please cast Drown in the Lock? Oh, that's cheating. Us cheating! I said please. Alright, well, now we have more options. Nope, we still just have the one option. Well, come on back, Drown in the Lock. Now... Again, I don't really want to let them draw another card. If this didn't have that adventure, it'd be so easy to just run away together here, but the fact that it does is rough. So since our opponent's on blue-black, we know they're probably not going to get rid of Midnight Clock. Almost ever. So we have a guaranteed way that if we can survive, we will out-card advantage our opponent. We'll outvalue them because we're going to draw 7 later. So I should probably just throw my removal pretty willy-nilly and just drown in the Lock the Foulmire Knight again if they don't play another creature. Maybe not. But that would be the justification for it, is I know I'm just going to draw a fresh 7 again in the future. So I just want to deploy my hand as quickly as possible. It's quite a good card here. 4/5 body, it bounces something, bounced my creature that has a +1/+1 counter, so it no longer does. I'll blow up the Scavengers with my Drown in the Lock now. Not if I want to play Harvest Fear. I want to guarantee Harvest Fear resolves while they're tapped out, and I can run away together on blocks. Got rid of a Runaway Together and a Bake into a Pie. means their last card in hand must be phenomenal. That's super cool with me. That could kill or counter any spell we cast, and they just used it to get rid of our 0/4 basically. Stop us from milling them 4 more as well. Might be scared of the mill plan. Especially with Midnight Clock, since we get to shuffle our graveyard back into our library. Yeah, we do win the mill game. Actually pretty solid counter from our opponent. Are we as cold as ice here? Stonecoil for a 6/6, but she's going to die to a Foulmire Knight. This is awkward. I feel like I'm going to have to still drown this Foulmire Knight just so I can actually do something with my Stonecoil Serpent. Well, if I can just trade with it, then never mind. Beautiful. No double black for Reaper of Night. Little rough there. They have 1 card in hand. 4, 5, 6, 7. They had a Drown in the Lock they used earlier. That was probably the 1 card that they kept in their hand earlier when they discarded Bacon to a Pie and something else, so we don't know what this last card is. Let's drop the Stonecoil Serpent. Alright, it is not a counterspell, at least. Ooh, a Queen of Ice to tap that down. Ten out of 12. Let's make sure we cast everything in our hand here. Queen of Ice is going to hit us here. We'll have this trigger in our upkeep when it gets the counter. So I've got one more turn to use the Drown. I'll save it in case they cast something really good here. If not, we just blow up the Scavengers. Probably should have just used it before we pass the turn, because it's unlikely that our opponent casts something main phase 1. Okay. Oh, and they're just going to scoop them up because the clock's popping off. I was trying to decide whether it's better to put the counter on right now so that it triggers right now, or just wait till the upkeep so it does it naturally. I'm not sure. I think it would be better to do it in the upkeep. Because if I do it in the upkeep, then I can tap it for blue before it resolves, and if I hit any instants that I want to cast, I could cast one. Really small corner case, but if I hit into like an opt or something, then I get to opt. But yeah, we're almost definitely winning that game. We're gonna have 7 cards in hand and a Reaper of Night with a Stonecoil Serpent on board to hit them. I can only attack them 11 times because of this Revenge of Ravens, but the 7/7 on board and probably a Drown in the Lock as a counter spell to back it up after Midnight Clock triggers. We probably have it unlocked, so. Didn't think we were Doing super hot in that game early on, but Midnight Clock is just a busted card if it ever gets towards triggering, and Stonecoil Serpent, after they'd expended all of their removal, was pretty solid as well. It's going to be 1-0 to start it off. Here we are, game 2. The mana's a little awkward here, but we know we have a Noble on turn 2, and we have a Scalding Cauldron for an early play from our opponent. We have 9 blue sources in the deck, so more blue than black. I've got 2 very castable cards here. And there's nothing really drawing me to the hand. There's nothing powerful here. If I had like something really good in hand, I'd keep, even though the mana's rough, but the mana's rough and there's not really a reason to keep it because nothing's like great. This I will keep. The mana is better, and we'll get rid of... This might be wrong, but I'm going to get rid of the Noble and go really slow here. We can still use the Rage of Winter as our 2 mana play. So we still have a curve of turn 2, we play Rage of Winter. Turn 3, we play the Queen of Ice, and turn 4, we play the Wicked Guardian on the Queen of Ice to draw a card. Alright, if our opponent does not play a creature, then we don't need to play the Rage of Winter, so we just don't play a 2-drop. Opponent does start with Lucky Clover. This could be really bad for us if the Merfolk Secret Keepers were open in their draft pod. We are going to get milled. Yeah, we're going to get milled 8 per Secret Keeper, so it's probably just over already. They get to mill a third of our library for Secret Keeper, and that's 2 right there. We're already at 15 cards. Seems good. So, as I said in the last draft, the Merfolk Secret Keeper deck is, Merfolk Secret Keeper in general. It's a pretty busted card, super scary when you can get it in multiples with cards like Lucky Clover, or cards like Run Away Together to bounce it to your hand and replay it. So it made the quick draft format pretty miserable because the bots really didn't draft after those cards. It's going to take some time, I think, for players to catch on and make it so people can't get decks like this, but for now, it looks like it might be just as devastating as it was during the quick draft era. I hate that our deck relies on card draw so much, so we're kind of milling ourselves as well. They top decked the Didn't Say Please after I discarded their hand. Seems very good. I probably should have attacked. They don't have a block. And I'm not dying to combat damage. I guess they would have just trumped with Apprentice, because then now they just have plenty of blockers anyway. Now I can hold up a counterspell of my own, but I have 7 cards left already. And I can't play Tome Raider without going down to 6 cards left. Mill me 18 seems pretty good. If I keep attacking with Queen of Ice, the Secret Keepers just keep taking turns untapping. Well, do I still have my XX? Nope, that got milled immediately. Yeah. We're not winning that. Frustrating game there. Opponent milled us 18 cards off of 3 cards, Secret Keepers and Apprentice. I guess 4 cards, Lucky Clover into the Secret Keepers and Apprentice. Not going to be particularly winnable. We had a chance if our opponent didn't immediately top deck Didn't Say Please after that to mill us 21 and counter our major play that turn. Yeah, I forgot about the Didn't Say Please as well. They milled us 21 cards in like 5 turns. Ouch. Alright, we've got our Drown in the Locks with the Drown in the Lock enablers. I will keep this. Opponents on blue-red, we milled 3 lands for them, so hopefully they were actually looking for those mountains. But we might have just helped them by making sure they didn't flood out there. We're going to start off with a Rimrock Knight. We'll play an Overwhelmed Apprentice to trade into that. Would I rather trade into it or just block it? I'll play the Apprentice. Just get that thing off the board permanently. I like both of these a lot. Oh, I do need to hit a land before I can actually cast those. That could be awkward. Charmed Sleep the Apprentice. They are getting very aggro. Sure thing. If they play another creature, we probably tap it down with Queen of Ice so we get some life gain in with our Smitten Swordmaster. Because the Secret Keeper can hold down the fort all day long, and the Rimrock Knight of our opponents cannot block. Merchant of the Veil is going to haggle, discard a card, draw a card. And they'll play the Merchant of the Veil. Got 8 cards in grave. I could just full on kill the Merchant instead of tapping it down for a turn. Which seems fine. It's got a pretty solid activated ability. Tome Raider. Another one that can trade into the Swordmaster, so we'll have to deal with that some way. Eventually. At least our opponent really doesn't have attacks on us for now. Unless they want to spend a spell to kill the Secret Keeper. I guess the Knight can't block, so there's like no reason not to threaten that you have a combat trick at least. Frogify the Swordmaster. Okay, let's make them discard their whole hand. Thank you very much, Reaper of Night. Harvest Fear being nasty. Now that this is a 1/1 on the ground, I might as well just offer the trade for the Tome Raider. So our opponent's empty-handed now, so they're just playing off the top. Stolen by the Fae, their own flyer, so that they can get 3 1/1s and draw a card. Pretty good. Let's draw our own card with the Wicked Guardian. I guess I have 2 Runaway Togethers in my deck. Maybe I should have just shot the Secret Keeper. Yeah, I don't have Graveyard Recursion, but I do have Bounce spells. So I feel like I probably should have just shot the Secret Keeper, because if I get any bounce spells, that would have been pretty good on the Apprentice. That was the wrong play. I don't actually have a Witch's Cottage. Opponent is drawing straight gas here. Gotta outrace these flyers somehow. Play all of our threats as quickly as we can. Taking 4 damage a turn in this guy. Man, I really don't like the play patterns of mind rots. Like, this is the best mind rot I've ever played, Reaper of Night, but it's still really frustrating when you get to pull off the mind rot to make your opponent discard their whole hand, so you know they have literally nothing, and then every turn from that point on they're still playing straight gas. And you know with 100% certainty it's because they've just like drawn into straight gas all game. It's like, god dang it. I've been trying so hard to stop you from doing things. Please stop doing things. Runaway Together's solid here, because we get to kill a fairy permanently. I think I'll just do that right now. And we actually get some lifelink. Alright, there's some lands now. Now I Reeve Soul the blocker to gain life. Now we are winning the race thanks to lifelink. 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I do want to play a Reaper of Night. Yeah, that's pretty gas. Draw 4 cards. And every time they cast a blue spell, they tap something down. Opponent's deck is very good. Can't even attack into this Gadwick. They are down to 9 cards in their library. I thought the life total race was going to go quicker, but then they top decked Gadwick, and that does not help me at all. I guess they would have been, if they didn't play Gadwick, they would have still had 13 cards in their library, so I think my play of bouncing the Swordmaster was right with the information I knew, which was that they had no cards in hand and we could easily outrace with the lifelink. The top deck of Gadwick works horribly for us with that line. Because now it's like our only hope is to mill them because they just have infinite cards to play around with to lock up the board state. And definitely to win on board as well, pretty quickly. lord. This is all non-land. I don't think I can survive the crackback. I can go to 6 life here. I can play a Queen of Ice. So I can tap one of their things down. But then I'm at 6 life, and they have 6 flying damage. I guess only if they draw a second card. If they draw a second card, we're really dead, because this is 4 power and this is 2. They only have 1 attacker on the ground, so can only block 1 creature anyways, so we'll block that creature with Queen of Ice. So, kind of predetermined line here, it's all we can do. So I can't block anything anyway. Alright. On board, we're going to go down to 2 life. We just need them to stop with all the gas. And if I can survive this turn, Midnight Clock's going to pop off. We're going to draw 7. We can attempt to find lethal off of that. Seems good. 2 and 2. 1 and 2? It might be 1 and 2, now that I think of it. It's been kind of long games. Yeah, 1 and 2, wow. Rough start. Alright, here we are, game 4 on the play. Got Fairy Vandal into Opt, which seems pretty awesome. Opponent starts with Overwhelmed Apprentice. If the format's going to be all mill all day again, might be a good thing it's only back for 1 week. I'm very much a variety drafter because I like playing against a really wide variety of decks and playing with as many unique mechanics and formats and stuff as possible. So when a format has been around for quite a while, it gets stale for me, like Dominar United. Feels like I've played against pretty much everything in Dominar United by now. I've played with pretty much everything. And if a format has you run up against the same kind of archetype over and over again, that format dries up really quickly for me. Main deck Mystical Dispute. I guess it is Mana Leak, but I guess this is a 1-3 draft. Wow. This is brutal. I don't think this deck was that bad, but the variances hit us really hard today. That's a lot of lands in this game, and they had the main deck Mystical Dispute to stop our 1 threat. We got annihilated by the deck that milled 21 cards in like 5 or 6 turns that I don't think any deck can beat. And then last round I think I played relatively well. We got in a pretty good position where we managed to even like rip out our opponent's entire hand, and then they just drew straight gas all day long. So brutal draft here, but this one is just to show off that sometimes you just get got. Sometimes you get destroyed. Definitely happens. You can draft a great deck and run up against decks that are just a little bit greater. And I don't think this deck is great, but I do think that it was definitely a deck that I think on average could do better than a 1-3. Yeah, sometimes you run hot, sometimes you run cold. I've definitely drafted some decks that I thought would 1-3 and run up against a lot of weaker decks and drawn well and gone 7 wins. This is not one of those days. Although, hey, Clackbridge Troll's a thing. I mean, our opponent did just draw 4 cards, so they're miles ahead in card advantage. If they weren't already ahead in cards due to the flooding. Alright, well, Clackbridge Troll's going to try to make up for that. Start giving us some cards. I probably should have attacked with Queen of Ice. Again, I haven't played perfectly today. I think I played decently in the round that we lost where we mind rotted. I've definitely missed some damage here and there. Like here, I should have attacked with Queen of Ice. Starting to feel like I was in the only draft pod where people were cutting Merfolk Secret Keepers. Maybe just because I wasn't in blue earlier. Maybe pack 1 had one that I didn't notice, but I only remember seeing one. That's just because I was only actively looking for it in pack 3. Now attacks with Queen of Ice don't really do anything, but definitely doesn't do anything blocking, so might as well. We're down to 12 cards in library already? Good gravy. Good gravy. Guess our opponent gets to use our own troll against us by making sure we draw extra cards every turn. They've got the Folio Fancies too? Absolutely not. This mills you equal to the cards in hand, or they can spend double X and have each player draw X, which also is like milling you because they're pulling those cards out of your deck into your hand. So Folio Fancies is a really quick mill win condition. Well, I know what the thumbnail artwork's going to be for this draft. It is definitely Merfolk Secret Keeper today. Alright, at this point, it's only going to attack as a 2/8, which is not going to kill them nearly fast enough, and they can keep using it to make us draw cards. I think for now I'm still okay with that, but I might sack the Clackbridge Troll in a little bit when I want to stop drawing cards. Okay, they don't even want to give us cards at this point anyway. Alright, well, thanks to Queen of Ice, I actually accomplished something by attacking with both of these creatures now. Even though they have 2 Secret Keepers, we get 2 damage in every other turn. Because the Queen of Ice is going to tap 1 down every other turn. Again, I still feel like I'm just going through the motions here. We're doing a grand total of like 2 damage every other turn. And we have 11 cards in library. And they're drawing more to get towards their 3rd Secret Keeper or their Runaway Togethers or anything like that. So I don't think our library is going to last very long here. They get to cast any non-land card from our graveyard. Runaway Together. Cast our own Runaway Together against us, or our Overwhelmed Archivist. It's the Runaway Together. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try to sacrifice whatever they target with Run Away together, because I might as well figure out if it works. At least, since this game's kind of a wash already. Tap down a Secret Keeper. Can it sack itself? Can't sacrifice itself. Okay. I'm gonna guess it works if my opponent's choosing to bounce this one. Alright. 4 more mill, we're at 6 cards in library. I'm surprised they didn't let us draw the card there. We go down to 5 cards in library, and then die to the next Clackbridge Troll trigger. Although I guess I can always just sack the troll. Only target opposing creatures. That's definitely nice. Alright, we can't deal 16 damage to them in 5 turns, and they're probably milling us more anyway. And I'm at the point now where I have to sack the troll so they can't choose to make me draw more cards. Yeah, I'm just going to leave here. 1-3. Brutal draft today, but at least we got the bad luck out of the way with a deck that I don't think could have gone anywhere near 7-win run anyway. There's that. Hopefully we've ran up against the majority of Merfolk Secret Keepers that I'll end up running up against. So I don't have to deal with those later when I have decks that I actually really like and I think are really good. Because it would be brutal to draft a deck that I'm like super happy with and then just run up against that blue-red player that went Lucky Clover and to just mill me 21 cards by turn 5 or 6. That would have been brutal if I had a really fun deck and then just run up against that. So yeah, overall, I don't think this deck's terrible. It's a collection of cards that I think are individually pretty decent. But yeah, this draft, we kind of lacked a clear deck idea, a clear synergy, a clear goal overall. So our deck is just, again, a kind of a mid-range collection of cards, which can get you places. You know, like a good mid-rangey deck can be a 7-win deck if it's got really consistent removal, just a really consistent pile of creatures, but this deck's not that consistent here, so it does feel like a 2-3 to 4-3 deck. 2-3, 3-3, 4-3, 3-3 was what I would guess would be the average here, because we do have some bomb power with the Serpent and the Troll, and the Reaper of Nights were nice, but we just ran up against some brutally good decks from our opponents. Multiple opponents where they just got 5,000 Secret Keepers, which is always going to be pretty devastating. And then the one blue-red opponent that was not milling us out just had a lot of really, really good value plays. So even mind rotting them down to 0 cards, they were just off the top. They could just keep slapping down some very impactful cards every turn. So some really high quality decks that we ran up against, which is not how I would classify this deck. So a 1-3 run it is. Can't win them all. Biggest underperformers and overperformers. Midnight Clock was incredible. Clackbridge Troll didn't really get to do anything. And Stonecoil Serpent was incredible. So Midnight Clock, Stonecoil Serpent, maybe overperformers, but they were bombs. So we already kind of knew they were going to be great. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's super underperformed. Because yeah, even the one time that we got to do Reaper of Night things was pretty great. I think we did it twice. And each time it made them discard 2 good non-land cards. Against the blue-red deck, that was really good because we ripped their whole hand away. So yeah, Reaper of Night was awesome. Yeah, I don't think anything did horrible in here. Everything was fine. All right. We'll move on to the next draft now. That is going to be it for today's video. That is going to be the end of today's draft. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help the YouTube algorithm know to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.